Olivia made her way through the Community Foundation's side garden. It was an idyllic entrance to the conference room, and inside, she saw friends and leaders from several local projects, ready to share stories of progress. The big windows seemed as if they let the garden inside, and with the excited energy around the big circular table, Olivia found herself wishing they did this more often. But she felt the weight of responsibility too, providing foundation support to each project and always searching for ways to encourage collaboration. Lately, it had been hard to reach out to some of the people there. She understood how busy they were. She felt their struggles as small local organizations, but she also felt she was mostly holding the responsibility of bringing it all together alone. As the tension rose within her, she thought, this meeting is going to require a big old cup of coffee. Hold on one second. The meeting began with Sarah sharing the progress of a Gardens for All initiative. She stood at the front of the room, her eyes shining as she spoke about the small team of educators and volunteers working to bring gardens into every local school. As Sarah spoke, her hands moved as if revealing connections. "We're teaching kids to see themselves as part of a living system," she said. "One way is through learning how necessary pollinators are, and how we need networks of flowering plants throughout town so pollinators can thrive and plants get pollinated. They're seeing how their school garden connects to these networks and thus to gardens at other schools." Olivia felt a flash of hope at Sarah's enthusiasm, but it quickly gave way to the familiar unease. Living systems. She'd heard those words before, in board meetings, funding proposals, community gatherings, words like synergy, interconnection, emergence. She'd been guilty of using those words herself, hoping that the language would inspire something real. And yet, sitting at this table, she heard those words again, while each project was feeling like its own little tree, while the living web between them felt like a faraway dream still. Olivia folded her hands in her lap, her mind spinning. We talk so much about living systems, but why don't we actually live them? She felt the weight of the room, a dozen voices with a dozen bright ideas, and realized that somehow the pattern of connection that Sarah was teaching the children was still missing amongst the adults. Olivia shifted uncomfortably in her chair as the next project leader took the floor. Then she realized she'd spent years driven by the hope the community would feel more unified, more like a big family and a big home. But as she listened to the challenges and struggles of her closest allies that revealed so much separation, she felt like she was the only one who could dedicate herself to a vision for the whole. Maybe what I long for is too idealistic in this world, she thought. Maybe I'm hoping for too much. Later, Olivia walked home through town. She passed empty playgrounds, an old garden bed behind the library, overgrown with weeds, and a small green space in front of a church that used to hold regular potlucks until the woman who organized them moved away. Where was the web to hold the community together? She could imagine a network of pollinators, but for people? How does the community become like a forest instead of isolated trees? And that thought hit her like a ton of bricks. What if I am dedicated to something that is just impossible? 1 week later, Olivia stood at the Community Foundation's table at a local festival with a bright banner overhead with logos of the projects she'd been supporting. She'd been greeting friends and answering questions all morning, trying to stay engaged despite exhaustion from so many moving people and parts. Then she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Olivia!" She turned and swelled with joy. "Matteo!" He was like a walking smile, always known for his good attitude, but his light shined extra bright on this particular morning. Matteo had worked closely with the foundation before he'd moved away the year before. "It's so good to see you," she said as they hugged. Then she stepped back, still holding his shoulders, making sure he was real. "You too," Matteo said, smiling so big he could eat a banana sideways. He glanced at the banner, then to Olivia. "Man, you've got a whole forest of projects going on here." Olivia smiled, but she couldn't hide her sense of frustrated irony over him bringing up the living system metaphor. Matteo tilted his head, empathy in his eyes. "Well, that's not the reaction I expected." Olivia sighed. "Lately we feel more like trees competing for sunlight." Matteo grabbed her shoulders in return. "I'm sorry to hear that, Olivia, but I've seen a community forest with these very eyes, one that's truly alive. I've been so excited to tell you about it." Olivia looked intrigued. He leaned in. My new job has me traveling all over Arizona meeting with community foundations, and I kept hearing about this little town up in the old mining hills. Everyone said, you just gotta see it. Something powerful is happening there. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Old mining town? That's not where I'd expect to find a vibrant community movement. Mateo grinned. Exactly. That's what made me so curious. One day, I was close enough to swing by, and it was incredible. Her eyes searched his face. What was it like? Mateo's smile turned reflective. I stopped by the local community center. As soon as I stepped inside, it felt alive. People were moving around, helping each other out. It was like everyone was drawing energy from something bigger than themselves. There was a real sense of shared identity. It was sort of joyfully defiant, I guess. He continued, I was talking to a youth tech club and this gardener came in needing help hauling supplies for a local garden project. And all the kids just jumped up and helped, and there was no hesitation. He shook his head. And I saw that same kind of thing over and over in the short time I was there. Honestly, I kind of get chills just talking about it. He grinned and moved on. Then he threw up his hands. I don't know what the secret sauce is, but it's real. I've seen it. Olivia felt a spark of hope with some urgency. I gotta go see this for myself. It was mid-afternoon when Olivia pulled into Solaria, Arizona. The last half hour of the drive had led her through landscapes defined by the beautifully cartoonish saguaro cactus with the impressive and mysterious Superstition Mountains beyond. The temperature was hot, and the light had an almost electric quality to it. She pulled up to Tony's community center and saw that the sign was partially covered by vines grown over the entrance to provide shade. Colorful murals were painted on the walls. The place had some character. Inside, she could tell the community center had once been a grocery store. The old deli display case held local art projects. Hey there, Olivia? A voice called from the back, and a woman emerged. I'm Rosa. We're so honored to have you visit our little town. Let me grab a pitcher of tea. We could talk out back. There's a shady spot overlooking the creek. They sat under an old mesquite tree while Rosa poured tea. They had exchanged a few emails in the previous couple of weeks before Olivia had arrived. Rosa identified deeply with the struggles that Olivia had shared in those messages, and she was eager to help in any way that she could. Want me to just jump into the story? Asked Rosa. Olivia nodded. Please do. Well, we didn't have a big plan when we took over the grocery store, Rosa began. Some folks thought we were crazy to invest so much in community building around here, but this is our home, and we knew that it had potential. You could feel it, especially at our annual street fair where this place really comes to life. She paused, looking thoughtful. And then one of our organizers had just come back from a training program with an institute called Regenesis in New Mexico. What they learned shifted how we saw things, taught us to see community as a living system, to explore what wanted to emerge here. Rosa took a sip of tea. We had so many ideas at first, things we thought needed fixing, but instead we started asking questions and listening. She looked at Olivia. We went around town, talked to elders, to parents, to kids. We asked, what do you love about this place? What do you remember from before the mines closed? Well, we didn't ask the kids that. What would you like to see here that would make you feel more at home? Rosa smiled. You know, it sounds simple, but what people wanted was a warm, welcoming place to gather on Friday and Saturday nights. So we started small. Potlucks, open mic nights, helping out with projects people cared about, and it just grew. It was like the energy was always here, it just was waiting to be channeled. Olivia listened, taking it all in. Rosa continued. We were very intentional about nurturing a network of relationships and a community identity we could all feel we belonged to. We didn't want to overwhelm people with big living system ideas, so we focused on doing things that let people feel them instead. Then sometimes reinforce what we were all learning through experience with these little talks. After a recent soil building workshop, for example, we had some students from a nearby university come talk about the soil food web. It was directly related to what we were already doing together, and people learned so much and weren't overwhelmed with information. She gestured her hands, tracing invisible threads. Olivia watched, remembering Sarah's similar gestures weeks before in the meeting room back home. Rosa continued. And that soil building workshop also led to someone asking about water harvesting. That led to creating a contour map to understand how water moved around and beyond town and where it could be stored and infiltrated into the land. That sparked the interest of several seniors who had worked in the mines, one who had specialized in moving water around. Watching them work with the youth was just awesome. We just kept listening and doing our best to support what wanted to happen. Every gathering seemed to spark something new and form connections. We started to really feel it, a network forming between us. It was like the place was waking up, and it was somehow a mix of what had always been here and something new. She looked back at Olivia. People started helping each other outside of the community center. Businesses started pitching in. Neighbors started collaborating on small projects and checking in on each other. At a certain point, when enough of the new connections and activity were visible, it was like we could all believe in it. And that's when it just took off. Rosa smiled. More people started investing time and energy, and it suddenly felt like a living system after all. Like, we really feel like a mycelial network. And now when we talk about our town being like a mycelial network, the conversations are really fun and alive. Like, most of what's happening here is beneath the surface, but you can feel it. You can feel how every act, every conversation, every shared meal is like a thread strengthening the whole. She paused, letting the weight of that realization land. It's been so refreshing. It hasn't been about any one project or any one leader. It's about attuning to the life of the place itself as a whole and learning to really believe in it together. Belief seemed to be essential for us in forming a culture where we act on inspiration. We act when there's an opportunity to help someone out, and we show up for each other and for this place. Olivia sat quietly, taking it all in. She felt as if the land itself was content, that it felt seen. She looked at Rosa, who now seemed both humble and wise. Olivia's shoulders dropped, and she let out a breath she felt she'd been holding for years. "Thank you," she said. For the first time, she didn't feel like she had to hold it all together. The burden she'd carried alone, trying to connect every project, every person, began to lift. She felt a new way. Neighbors investing in relationships, drawn together by a growing sense of local identity and purpose, an awakening of care for the whole. She saw the importance of attuning to place, listening for what wanted to happen, noticing energy that was already present, and boldly acting to nurture the connections that wanted to be made. Solaria had shown her that this everyday practice of noticing, acting, and tending was what brought the whole to life. As more people felt it, belief grew, and the invisible mycelial network of community took root. Olivia realized that her role wasn't to hold the web herself, but to hold the practice that brings the web more to life, to be a gardener of belonging, to tend to the threads that make the living system thrive. As Rosa left to help some local youth with a dish for the upcoming potluck, Olivia wandered down to a bridge over the creek. She leaned against the railing. She looked up and saw an older woman hauling compost to the garden, struggling with the weight. Almost as if on cue, a pickup pulled up, a young man jumped out to help, and before she knew it, another neighbor arrived, rolling up his sleeves. Olivia watched, and in that instant she saw it, the invisible threads pulling this moment together. She witnessed a part that revealed the life of the whole. She turned back towards Tony's, the community center, ready to join in, not to carry the weight of it all, but to become a part of this lively and loving mycelial web. And now for the participatory prompt. Step out there today, into your neighborhood, in your community space, and open up a conversation. Ask someone what they love about your place, and listen deeply. Notice if there's something small you can do that's inspired by what they share, something that can create or strengthen a thread in the invisible mycelial network of place.